All right, let's get started with the next talk, which I'm going to give on writing good GitHub issues. Now, we're focused here mostly on like the technical aspects of open science, right? Teaching you how to access data, teaching you how to use certain tools. But there are a lot of social aspects that are really important for working with the open science community. There's a lot of topics here, but I think the most important one that is a good introduction is how to write good GitHub issues. Because I see a lot of people in the community who are nervous about writing issues, and I really think that this is a really good opportunity for you, and I want to train you how to do that, and I'm hoping to see issues here. So why bother filing a good issue? If you have a problem with the software, it's easy to just give up. But honestly, opening a good issue is a way that you can contribute, and it's a way that novices can contribute as well as experts. And I want, first of all, with this intro, I really want to impress upon you that this is not a nuisance, right? You're not bothering the developers by opening an issue. I think a lot of people are worried about that, but the truth is that you're actually contributing to the package in a meaningful way. It helps the maintainers when you open an issue, because honestly, like as someone who writes software, you put it out there, and often, I tell you can go ahead, or are you just standing? Oh, okay, gotcha. Oh, you're making your tea. Okay. As someone who makes software, you could put out software and not know how it's being used, right? You don't know whether people are successfully using it. You don't know whether people are unsuccessfully using it. You don't know what features people want if they're not going to give you feedback, right? And so it's actually really, when I first started writing software, I was really happy to receive issues because it meant people were using my software, right? So, this idea that it's a nuisance, it couldn't be further from the truth. It's actually really helpful. It can be helpful for other users too, right? So if you're facing this issue, likely other users are also facing this issue, and now you've created a hub where people can discuss it. You can find workarounds. You can make it clear that lots of people are suffering from the same issue, and it helps you. It helps you make connections to the community, and you might actually enable a fix to your problem. Though I have to say, it does take effort to write a good issue, and there are certain things you should know, because there are certain maybe faux pas that I want to help you not commit when you're writing a good issue. It's good to put your best foot forward, and there are lots of ways that you can do that, and merely make it a strong contribution. Because the fact is, not every issue is a good contribution to open science. You have to do it correctly. And so this talk will be all about how to do that. So first of all, for those of you who aren't as familiar with GitHub, I'm just going to go quickly through kind of some terminology so we're all on the same page here. GitHub is basically the primary hub for software development right now. It's, you could think of it as like kind of your Facebook for software development. Open source developers usually put their code on GitHub. There are other competitors, but GitHub is the dominant one right now. And it's a way to share your code with the community so others can see all of your code, can see every change you made to it, and can download it and use it themselves, and suggest and file issues and suggest changes. More than just a place to share code, it also provides free storage. It provides free compute to open source projects. So there are lots of benefits to using GitHub, and these free resources are a large part of why it's so popular in the community. So it's not just code, it's also issue tracking, it's code review, it's releases, it's web hosting, it's automated testing. There's a whole software suite of features around GitHub. We're just going to talk about issues right now, but there's a lot within GitHub that enables you to really accelerate your projects. So just some terminology. Projects are called repositories. That's code repositories, and that's shortened to repos usually. They can be owned by a person or an organization. Issues, we say the issues, that just is basically a support ticket. It's something that anyone in the community can open, and it's a place to publicly discuss any kind of support ticket in the open source community. and pull requests, which I don't think we're going to go too much into, but that's how you suggest a change to a code base. So if you want to edit something that's owned by someone else, you can submit a pull request. I mean, you could do it for something as simple as a typo. If you see a typo in the docs, you can go into GitHub, say edit that word to be correct, and then what you would do is submit a pull request, which the developers can review and incorporate that change. And that goes all the way up to major refactors, any change you want to make to a library. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what a GitHub issue is. So again, it's GitHub's name for a support ticket, which is attached to a repo, which again is basically a project. Anyone can open one as long as they're enabled by the project. They're enabled by default. So I would say the vast majority of repos you'll find allow you to open issues. The ones that don't usually are like archived historical things that developers are no longer supporting. And I would say if a project does not allow you to open issues, that is a signal that it's probably not actively supported. You can open an issue about really anything, any way you would want to communicate with the developers. I'd say maybe the most common is a bug where something won't run or it runs the wrong way. But that's not the only type of issue. You can open an issue about a feature request. Any capability that you think the package should have or that you'd like to discuss or recommend, and then start a discussion about it. That's a perfectly valid usage of the issue feature. Documentation, something that's missing in the docs or unclear, or a typo, all of these are perfectly good uses of issues. Even if you just want to ask a question, if you want to say, I don't really understand this, I mean, that could probably translate to a change in the docs. Or even if you want to ask more of a strategic question, like, is it within your plan to do this in the future? You know, and have a discussion about that. Issues are a fine place to have that conversation. So there are lots of ways that you can open an issue. Before you even get into this, you need to create a GitHub account. So if you don't have one already, I would say I think everyone here should create one. If you don't have one, it's free, and you'll need one to open an issue. When you open a GitHub account, you have to choose a username. I would say make this professional. This is not your gamer handle, you know, so this is your professional profile for the open source community. So take it seriously. I say that, though one of my collaborators, his GitHub handle was Cowpig, and he's like the founder of a successful software consulting company. So I guess not everyone goes by this mantra, but I think for me, it's helpful if I'm interacting with people and I can understand who this person is. Because if they're contributing, I want to be able to recognize their contributions. And if their name is Cowpig and they don't have any information on their profile, then that's going to be really difficult to do, right? So you're just helping other people understand who they're talking to. And towards that end, I would say in your bio, put your name, your position, a brief description about your research interests, help people understand who you are so that when you open an issue, they have that context and can communicate with you in that capacity. And literally help you understanding what your needs are. Okay, now that you've created a GitHub profile, I'm going to step through some guidelines for how to create a good issue. Now, not every issue you create is going to need all of these steps, right? This is kind of this is all like your complete breakfast. I don't know if you know the 90s commercials. It's way more than you probably need in a normal GitHub issue, but you'll probably need most of these components, and you'll just have to pick and choose what is relevant for the issues that you're opening. But basically, first of all, you do your homework, you try to reproduce, and you try to search for an existing issue. Second, you need a clear title. Third, provide a bit of context. 4, show how to reproduce it. 5, talk about expected behavior, and 6, propose solutions. So first, you want to be able to reproduce this bug. Now, The first step is to identify what library is causing the problem. And this can actually be really tricky because almost all of the bugs are going to be a combination of libraries. One library is calling another, it's calling another. And yeah, the error trace is from one library, but that might be because it's called incorrectly from another library. So it can be difficult to identify what library is causing the bug. Don't let that stop you from opening the issue. I would say try your best to identify the library that's causing the bug and just open it where you think it belongs. If it turns out to be the wrong library, that's not a faux pas, right? That's like, developers know that this is can be difficult for users to understand like where this bug is coming from, and actually it can often be quite ambiguous. So just open it and the developers will kind of triage it and sort it to where it needs to be. It's okay to be wrong here. Another thing you can do is try to reproduce it in the latest version. So it's possible that you're using the latest released version, but that there's a developer version that has not been released yet where this bug is already fixed. So I would recommend trying to reproduce this bug in two different ways. One is to download the latest version of the library. So if you're in Python, this would be pip install -u and the library name. That's short for update, and it will bring you to the latest version of that library. So you can test if the latest version has maybe fixed it. Maybe you're dealing with an old version that still has the bug. There's no point in opening it if it's already been fixed. And then a little bit more advanced would be installing the developer branch of the library, where you git clone, and then you have the GitHub URL, you cd into the package, and then the standard way would be pip install. This -e puts it in edit mode, so it's like recommended for if you're installing something locally and making changes to it potentially. And then this period means like the current working directory. Now, I say that installing in developer mode is a bit more advanced because sometimes installation is more complicated than just a simple pip install, right? So I would say try to do it this way, but if you end up having trouble with the developer branch, it's okay to move forward if all you've done is test it in the latest release. But for most of the libraries we're working with, pip install, like installing it this way will work, and so that is a good thing to try. Okay, next is search before you post. So this issue might have already been raised by someone else. And it's best to try to not duplicate these issues, right? So I would say go onto GitHub and search for the issue that you found. And make sure you search for both open and closed issues. The GitHub defaults to just searching open, but it might have already been addressed in closed, so make sure you do that. If you find that the issue is already reported, I would say it's really helpful to contribute to that issue, right? Because it's really important for the developers to understand how many people are coming up against this bug. So GitHub has an emoji reaction feature. So you can literally just put a thumbs up next to that issue, and then that's kind of like a vote that tells the developers, oh, there's like 10 or 15 people that are suffering from this problem. If there's something you can add, some context that you think might be helpful, it's also great to comment on the issue, which you should be able to do. So just kind of figure out what's most appropriate for your situation. And that will help the maintainers prioritize the issues that are affecting the most users. I'm just going to put a few repositories here of some of the key packages that you're going to be working with. There are dozens of GitHub packages that we will go over in over this week. So this is far from an exhaustive list, but we have the DANDI Archive is on GitHub here. That would be anything about like the search mechanisms or like the landing page of the data sets or anything about like the DANDI website itself. The DANDI CLI is what you'll be using to upload and download data. So if you have any problems there, that would be a good place to raise it. PyNWB is the primary API for interacting with NWB files, reading and writing. NeuroSift for visualizations. That can get quite complicated, and I'm sure there are bugs there, and it'd be great if you could help us identify them. Pineapple, Guillaume Viejo will be giving a talk later today, and they have a GitHub repository as well. And really, TorchBrain is on GitHub. There are basically all of the tools that we're working with here are on GitHub and would welcome good issues. Okay, so finally getting into how to actually create this issue. So the first step of creating a good issue is a good title. It is helpful to have a prefix like bug or feat, short for feature, or doc or question, just to orient exactly what you're looking for here. And then after that, you should have something descriptive that really tells the developers exactly what is going on, and basically what you want here is something that they can search for and that they can immediately have enough details. So sometimes I see issues where the title is bug in processing or feature request. These are bad titles. Please don't raise issues with these titles because they need to be something more specific. So what I actually did here is I went into Spike Interface and I just played around with it until I found an issue. Basically, I tried some edge cases and I actually found an issue. So I'm going to walk you through a real issue that I filed on Spike Interface, testing an edge case to show you exactly what I would do. All of the ingredients of a good issue. So here is the title. Bug. Extract waveforms fails on multi-segment recordings when segments have different sampling rates. So this is the exact method that I used, and it tells you the situation and what happened, right? That's all in the title. Okay. Now, I would say next is setting the context. So if this is your first time interacting with this repo and you don't know the developers, I would say it's nice to give a one-sentence intro about who you are and what you're trying to do with the package. Something like, "Hi, Spike Interface team, thanks for this fantastic library." A little bit of gratitude is nice. Whenever I'm maintaining something and someone expresses gratitude, it honestly makes me more excited to help them. So I just, if you're being self-interested, it's just nice to just one sentence of gratitude. I'm a postdoc working on multi-electrode array data. Okay, a little bit context of who you are and what you're trying to do. I'm trying to extract waveforms from a multi-segment recording where each segment has a different sampling rate. Now, it's a bit of an unusual situation where you're trying to get waveforms where I guess you've turned off the acquisition and turned it on with different sampling settings. Understandable that Spike Interface had never dealt with this situation before, but it's something that they should be able to handle gracefully, right, somehow. I say equipment changed mid-experiment. I expected extract waveforms to either resample internally or give a clear error. So here, I'm not just saying what I did, I'm also saying what my expectations are and how they're different from what actually happened. Okay, the next thing is a self-contained example of the code, of the error, right? You want to be able to reproduce this error. So you want a bunch of things here that are really going to be important to really do the best self-contained example. One is include imports. So I have here import spikeinterface.full as SI and import numpy as NP. A lot of people omit these, but that might be the source of your error. Maybe you're importing the packages wrong, so it's just important just to have it all fully self-contained. Another thing is important that it runs on its own. So you might see issues where people are like, oh yeah, I had to load in my own data that you don't have access to in order to reproduce this error. Well, I mean, that is, if you really don't know how to reproduce it in any other way, it is acceptable, but it's not the preferred way. I mean, it's really, I would say it's, as a developer, the faster I can reproduce your issue, the faster I can fix it, because that's often the most difficult part of fixing an issue is just reproducing it on the developer side, right? So if I can have a self-contained script where I am, so here, for instance, look, I'm randomly generating this data. That's not how I'm actually using this package, right? I'm not going to be using data that's randomly generated. This is not something that I would ever have in my actual processing script because it has this, I would never randomly generate 4 seconds of 30 kilohertz data. But this is actually really helpful when you're filing an issue because it minimizes the requirements and it makes it really easy for a developer to just come, copy and paste this, reproduce your issue, and move forward from there. Another thing is make it as short as possible. When you come up against an error, it's likely going to be in a script that's hundreds of lines long, right? But the actual error can probably be reproduced in 10 or 12. So actually, it takes time. Whittle it down to like keep on rerunning and removing lines until you have the minimum set of lines that reproduces your error. That takes time. Okay, so like writing an issue, it's not a trivial thing sometimes to write a really good issue. But I would say if you're able to minimize it to 10 or 12 lines, you're really going to ingratiate yourself to the developers that are dealing with this issue. And again, use mock data. Don't use private files if you can avoid it. We have dealt with issues where that's not possible, where it's like, oh, we have a read error on this file. They don't know why there's a read error, and they can't really whittle it down any further than that. So then we'll figure out a way for us to privately get the file and run it and then diagnose the issue. Like that's possible, but it's better if you can randomly generate the data. Okay. Then you want to talk about your environment and the full traceback. So you can use the command pip freeze or conda list to get a full list of all of the packages in your environment. That can be really helpful. Sometimes the developer will just say, oh yeah, this is a known issue with this version of NumPy. You need to upgrade NumPy, and then boom, you're done, right? But they're not able to know that unless you provide what environments you're using. So it's pretty quick to just run pip freeze. That will give you a full list of all of the packages and their versions, and copy and paste that in. The other one of the biggest mistakes I see novices make in filing issues is if they get this error message is called a traceback. That's like the official term for it. It's often like really long, right? So you probably recognize this, but when you see it, it's probably this times like 5 or 10, right? It can take up the whole screen of just like traceback, what looks like gibberish, honestly, to a lot of people. It may look like gibberish to you, but it is really essential for the developers of the package to understand what's going on. And it's really important that you copy and paste the entire traceback. A lot of times people will just take that last snippet and post it. Because people feel like it would be rude to copy and paste a wall of text that they don't understand and just kind of like throw it onto the developers, like, here, you deal with it. I promise you it's not like that. It's actually really great if it's fine if it's 100 lines long. Just copy and paste the whole traceback. We will sort it out. It's really helpful for us, and it's really hard for us to solve issues without it. So that's a big thing. Okay, and then you should say what should have happened, right? So sometimes there's a bug because you get a traceback and the code doesn't run. But often a bug is just unintended behavior. So like that's what happened here in the issue that I'm showing, that I actually the issue is that it ran without any warning or anything. It just concatenated these two segments of recording that had different sampling rates without explaining like how it actually negotiated that difference. And then you should say what you think should have happened. So I would say here, it's not exactly clear what should have happened. One option is it could auto resample all segments to a common rate and throw a warning, right? That's a reasonable course of action for Spike Interface to deal with segments of two different sampling rates. One is a clear error explaining that it's not able to extract mean waveforms if the concatenated signals are of different sampling rates. That's perfectly acceptable too. And then a third would be a parameter to choose how mismatches are handled, right? So it could be an additional argument to that method saying, oh, if there is a mismatch, choose this sampling rate or do a resampling or something like that. It's important to do this when nothing crashes. When it being wrong is just simply relative to your expectations about what the package should do. I think the most complete way to work with this is to offer 3 ideas of how it could be solved and then make your recommendation about which one you would prefer, right? That gives the developers a lot to work with. So you could say, well, one is you could auto resample, two is you could do an assertion error or a value error, and three is you can have a sampling rate mismatch parameter. And then I would say in the issue, I'd suggest number 2, short term, and number 3 later, happy to help implement a fix. And then on top of that, I just want to offer some tips on how to make your issues look really good. So there's some kind of special syntax you can use in creating an issue. So you can use fenced code with syntax highlighting. So this triple tick starts a code block. And then after that triple tick, you can say what programming language you're using. So if you say Python after that, then any code within that block is going to be highlighted with Python syntax. And GitHub supports lots of different programming languages and highlighting syntax, so that just makes it look a little nicer. Another tip is to collapse long output into a details block. So inside of code, you can do details, and then here, if you do a summary, that's going to show up as like an accordion with a little toggle that you can click to view all of the contents. So if you have stuff that you think might just be too long, like if you have a traceback that's like way long and it's just a wall of text, you can put it inside this details and then it's expandable. So then you have it, but it's not like a wall of text. Cross-linking issues is great. So you can cross-link to issues or PRs. You just put number sign and then the number, and this will automatically create a link to other issues. One thing that I love when opening issues, especially when I'm working with like a plotting library or like a web front end or something that has like a really user interface centric, is screenshots, GIFs, screen recordings. These are huge. So especially with anything user interface related, every issue I have, I'll just take a quick screenshot, and then you can just take that and drag it into GitHub, drag it into the window of text, and it will automatically upload that image and include it in your issue. That's super helpful. It does support GIFs as well if you want to create a GIF. One thing I do with, like, whenever I have an issue with the DANDI Archive, for instance, I will set up QuickTime to do a screen recording, record myself doing the thing and the issue that arises, right? And then you can just drag that, even the whole video file, directly into the GitHub issue. It'll automatically upload it and provide it in line in the issue. So that can often, a picture is worth 1,000 words. It often can really highlight exactly what the problem is. I would say that doesn't obviate you from all of the other fields here, but it can help a lot. And then GitHub has a way to click preview before you actually submit, so you can view all the formatting and make sure it looks good. And then after you hit submit, just be patient. Maintainers are often volunteers. It's normal to take a few days. Make sure to monitor it in case they have any follow-up questions. Make sure to be kind, assume good faith. If it's fixed, thank them and confirm so they can close it, or you can close it yourself if the issue has been fixed. And then that thread is now a permanent public contribution with your name on it. So I really see GitHub issues as important contributions to open science. And I mean, just like, I'll let you know, when I'm interviewing people for CatalystNeuro, one thing I will look at is like issues that they've opened on GitHub, right? Like, do they know how to open a good issue? So I don't know if other employers do that. I imagine they do. So this could actually be like a really important demonstration that you know how open science works and you know how to contribute to open science in a meaningful way. So I would say, just like for your own kind of resume, like every applicant I get for CatalystNeuro that I'm seriously considering, I look up their GitHub profile and I look up their activity. So just take that for what it's worth. Okay, so checklist. One is try to reproduce on the latest version of the software. Then search for open and closed issues relating to this. Try to have a clear prefixed title, provide the context, who you are and what you're trying to do. Try to create a minimal self-contained code that demonstrates the issue. Tell them about your environment, your programming environment, and give them a full traceback. Describe the expected behavior, and propose solutions. And let me just get onto GitHub so I can show you what this really looks like. Okay, so here's Spike interface. What was the title? Let me do this a different way. How do I find this? I don't remember. Oh, that's a good idea. Oh, I got to spell that correctly. Okay. I'm not exactly sure if we actually submitted this, but let me just show you another issue that has all of these ingredients. So a descriptive title, a summary of what happened, bug descriptions, how to reproduce, proposed fix, right? So there's a good example of it. Okay, any questions about this? Yeah, Kathleen.
I was kind of surprised to see like 2 bugs in one issue. Like, would you normally recommend find a bunch of things so it's separate them out?
Yeah, I mean, it's all just going to be situationally dependent. You probably should have probably 1 bug per issue in most cases, but if you're trying to read 1 file and it has multiple bugs in that read, there are cases where it makes sense to itemize those out. And then you can have sub-issues, right? So if this turns out to be too big for 1 issue, you can make a sub-issue. There are lots of approaches for this, yeah. So this is opening issues is really an important way that you can contribute, and it's something that you can do to help to give back to our open source community specifically. This is an output that I really hope to get from this, is as you're using these tools, I know they're not working 100%, right? And every year we identify bugs and we fix bugs, but there will be more bugs, and there will be more features that you think should be there that aren't there, right? And so it's hard for us to keep track of all of these things. But it's much easier if you open issues and you actually put it in the system so that we have a record of it, and then you have a record of the contribution. All right, any more questions? And I'm happy to, if it's your first issue, I'm happy to kind of guide you through it. You can show me a draft, and we can talk about it if this is something you're interested in trying out in this hackathon. If you've never opened an issue before, I think opening an issue would be a great thing to try here during this week. Yes, Oliver.
So this is less of a question rather than a comment. Okay? So Ben, you did a great job sort of, lining out how does a good bug report look like. From my personal experience, when, as you're working here, you're encountering things that, oh, I wish the software would do this.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you file a feature request like that, it is extremely useful for us as developers to understand what is your use case, what is the problem you're trying to solve, and lead with that. Because it's very often that we will get requests for a very specific narrow feature, and we don't understand why that particular feature is going to be needed, or even if the proposed feature is the right solution to the problem.
Yep.
And so by leading with the use case and the problem you're trying to solve, you allow the developers to also propose alternate solutions or point you to, hey, the software actually solves it already. It's just solved in a different way that you might have not expected. And so the solution may not always be exactly what you envision the solution to be. So it's perfectly fine to say, this is what I think should happen, right? You can, like in the bug, you can propose a solution. But when you make a feature request, it's incredibly useful for a developer to understand where you came from, what the actual underlying problem is that you tried to solve, and then go into the actual feature that you're requesting.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, it relates to the, hey, I'm a postdoc or I'm a grad student trying to do this, but even further, right? Really explain the problem. I mean, you said it well, Oliver. I mean, 100%. Like just going straight into the solution, it's really difficult for us to ensure that that's the right approach. Yeah. Yeah, one.
So we have the issues in GitHub, but I also know that there's something called discussions. I'm just kind of wondering what is like the difference between both, because
So okay, so I'll show it. I mean, it's a good point. So there's okay, here's a good example of a Spike interface, though it's a very well-maintained project, does not have discussions. So it's up here. It would normally be up here. So I'll show, I know DANDI Archive does discussions, right? So it's a per repo thing, something that they can enable. So they have issues, pull requests, which again are changes. Agents are kind of a new thing that I'm not that familiar with. And then you've got optionally discussions, configurable. Now, sometimes projects like to move certain types of issues to discussions, right? So they want to say, well, issues are specifically for bugs, and other topics can be moved to discussions. So here you've got like ideas or polls or Q&A or show and tell. Like there are lots of community contributions that might not be bugs. This is something that will hopefully be expressed in the contributing guidelines of the project. I think most projects just use issues for all of this. Discussions are a bit newer, but discussions are great too, and they have a bit of a different, they have more of like a threaded approach where you can respond to like specific people in line. It looks like a little more like Reddit, if you're familiar. So that can be conducive to more complex conversations that kind of go in different directions. Totally valid, and I think it's a good idea to check out, to like look through the issues and discussions to see what like the cultural norm and the pattern is for this particular repo, because everyone's a little bit different. Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful. Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone.